word to inform us about.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir. And good day to you. How are you?
Make sure my ears are plugged in.
All right.
Okay.
You look like you're ready to go out and wrestle up some cattle.
Yeah, I've got my denim jacket on this morning. Yeah, I hope to get a few bushes in the ground today.
Okay.
Working up to the new moon, full moon. Coming.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
good time to plant. And looks like the cold weather's backing off on us. A little rainy here. Let's see. Oh, it's good to see you, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Always a pleasure. Alaikum salam.
So I missed you last week, and I haven't given it much thought. Been so preoccupied with other things, and that's a good thing to always have something to do.
Absolutely.
So many people are just sort of riding along and bored with life. I can't remember the last time I had a boring day.
This is true. This is true.
So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear brother, dear instructor Bilal, are you hearing me okay?
Oh, you're asking Amina or me? Because I hear you fine.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, you're 5x5.
Okay. Yeah, I sent Amina the link, and she joins us. That's fine. She likes to sit in.
Yeah.
Sometimes just listen. In any case, we were. I brought up the subject of divine order, and a couple of weeks back, and asked you a few questions having to do with the cosmic hierarchy as it relates to our relationship with each other and with our source creator. You see, there is a hierarchy, and people are always trying to counteract that because it's a form of escapism. I mean, if there's no hierarchy, that means there's no accountability. And if there's no accountability, then, hedonism is the call for the day, and we might as well just be going out and doing whatever we want because there's no one going to hold us accountable. But we know that's not true, and men especially know this is not true. When men are on their own, as Jordan Peterson aptly remarked in one of his little brief interviews, he said they get the pecking order straight pretty quickly. And the first thing a man does when he walks into a room is see who the alpha males are, because there may be more than one, And the alpha male is usually not the biggest braggart out there. He's usually the quiet guy sitting in the corner watching everything.
Yes.
And so we suss him out pretty quickly. And then we also, after we identify the beautiful women, that's just automatic, you see. So we do those assessments usually within 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes sooner. All right. Now, we establish these sort of it's a part of our feature. I mean, it's a fight or flight thing, you might want to say, but every guy wants to know who he's going to have to possibly stand up against and who he's not going to want to stand up against. Okay. So, and that's part of the pecking order. Why? Because men are dangerous. Okay. You get on the wrong side of the wrong guy and he's going to deck you. And you never know if that one fist is a Mike Tyson killing, blow. You just don't know. And it happens. And I've been in the emergency room. I've seen people get innocently killed, just because they got on the wrong side of the wrong guy who hit them. Didn't hit them hard enough to kill them, but they fell on the curb, cracked their skull, and they died. It just happens like that. So there is a hierarchy. And if it's not one that's established by so-called lawgivers, for the sake of trying to civilize their societies, it's established by nature, you see. And are they both following the same order? Not necessarily. So that's what I'm trying to get at, you see. Now, women don't think too much about this. They think about it sort of subconsciously because they go after the alpha males, you see, and they don't even realize it. They're just looking for the guy who's going to make them feel the safest.
Yes.
Okay, for the most part. That's pretty much the underlying motivation there, if you just want to keep it at the lizard level. And I think everyone knows what I mean when I say that. So there are gold diggers and social climbers amongst there. And the more paranoid they are, the higher they're going to try and climb. So are they considering a hierarchy? No, they kind of get onto it after a while and they see, oh, that's the kind of power I want my guy to have. And so she might switch partners, trying to get more power once he becomes a little bit more politically astute. And these kind of antisocial people sort of gravitate to the top because, hey, they're scared. And they want to make sure that there's as much of a buffer between themselves and the people that are going to learn to hate them, okay, as they climb. So they established the hierarchy. Now, I'm going at it a little bit differently today, brother, because I don't want to I don't want to pretend that there's no sin out there and that everybody's free of these potential faults, because the greatest psychologists amongst us acknowledge the fact that, hey, there but for the grace of God go I. All right. And that's just the human condition. And that's our struggle. That's our jihad to overcome those impulses to set us in those particular categories. And I remember being in that category when I was a doctor. I didn't realize it. I was a walking little god on earth and thought I was just, Mr. Super Guy to all my beloved patients who were so grateful to have me as their doctor. And wasn't that just a fine day in my life, So everybody is subject to these kinds of misuse of social hierarchies. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because we're all subject to these kinds of sins against ourselves and against our creator. So again, divine order is set up as a natural law. We sort of throw into it, Petra, and we want to have it disciplined and sort of find out where it is that we fit into the social schema by naming who we are and naming what we can do, right? I mean, when somebody meets you, all right, and they're a complete and total stranger, one of the first things that they say, and if you're in England, how do you do? Well, you see, this question is loaded, okay? It means, who are you? What do you do? And who are you with? Okay, it's all in there.
Okay.
How do you do what with whom?
Right. Right.
Okay. So we all, why do we want to know this thing? Because we want to know where we fit into the hierarchy and where that person fits into the hierarchy, because we know that we identify according to association, right? Now, if you're going to be a hierarchy climber and do it of your own will, then you're going to just find out who's got the power, and you're going to follow the power and the money and go that route. And that's what's going on in the world. And it's an old story. And as long as people are using money instead of real things to exchange their goods and barter their services for, this problem is going to exist. And Islam calls it riba, and there's other names for it as well, I'm sure. But there's a hierarchy that's supposed to be set in place to avoid these kinds of traps, you see, that are challenges. All right. Look, Allah built these traps right in the way, and we're on this path and we're kind of walking down the road, and they say, "Oh, darling, don't step there." No, there's bamboo at the bottom of the pit there. Here, let me show you. Okay. So we we learn how to avoid these pitfalls. At least we hope we do. And I believe that the Quran has given us moral codes and ethical codes. There should be one and the same, but they're not always. That are going to help us to establish this hierarchy and move us right along in the path, on the path of Islam, our return to our source creator. And we want to return to our source creator as consciously as possible, which means that's why these challenges are there, because, hey, I'm always smile when I think about your interpretation of Adam's fall. You call it a slip, you see, and I kind of like that, because it hurts when you slip and fall, man. It hurts in pain, and it wakes you up and makes you aware of hey, I misstepped there, and I don't want to do that again. Now, hierarchy is placed in order to teach us this, from the cradle, up to the, walking to the bus stop all by yourself, and then maybe driving the bus, you see. So Quran, I'm sure, gives us guidance with respect to respecting hierarchy. And it identifies who these people are. Now, Jesus just said, this wonderful thing, and I don't always like to use that word, but it's so commonplace now. He said, you know them by their fruits. Okay, so, and we've got all this seed thing going in the planting, and of course it's the time for the planting all over the states now in this particular season. So everyone's concerning themselves with seed, at least people who are connected in Salat. People who are connected are concerning themselves with the seed that they are planting, and this is the season for planting. So we want to get these seeds out there. We want to get them in the ground, and we want to raise them according to the principles of hierarchical education. Oh, I'm introducing a new word here, you see. See, so I'm trying to cover the gamut here before I hand the microphone back to you, because I know this is kind of a very loaded question, and it's a big open question too. What does the Quran have to say about divine order?
Wonderful.
And what advice is given to us by the Quran to maintain this divine order? Well, I say, okay, well, establish prayer and do what's right, produce a good fruit. We all know these sort of things, but I'm sure that there are specific words that have been perhaps misapplied along the way. And I want to help people to understand by pulling this knowledge out of you according to the Nunetic stream of inspiration. I really believe it's truly inspired what you're doing, instructor. So with that being said, let me hand the mic over to you and pick up where you left off 2 weeks ago, if you remember.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. In fact, I have some new tidbits and gems and gold nuggets
Good,
today. All right.
good, good.
So
Alhamdulillah.
let me begin with where
Mm,
you just left off. And of course, we both begin with Allah's signature. And his signature is characterized by rahmah, or divine mercy,
mm,
as a benefactor for all and as a redeemer for those who lose the way. So we begin with that signature. Now, you mentioned Adam and his slip, and that's actually something that can be attributed directly to the Quran. I didn't make that up.
mhm.
When Allah speaks about Adam, he never speaks about Adam falling into a sleep as the Bible does. The Bible says Adam was put into a deep sleep,
Mhm.
and says that Adam slipped. Now, both of those words, sleep and slip, are consonantally connected.
Mhm.
However, when you sleep, you're taken off of your feet and you're put into a horizontal position.
Mhm.
And on the most part, you enjoy that position and you enjoy that moment when you're able to get some rest or able to get some sleep. And you become unaware of most of what's going on around you unless something around you happens to wake you up.
Mhm.
All right. But when you slip, on the other hand, you become very uncomfortable. See, it's not like sleep. When you
Mhm.
sleep, it's comfortable. When you slip, instead of losing consciousness as you do when you sleep, your
Mhm.
consciousness is actually exacerbated. You're,
Yes.
you're trying to figure out what just happened. What did I
Mhm.
step
Right.
on? Am I going to fall? Am I going to stuff? Am I going to hit my head like that person who got punched out that you were talking about in
Mhm.
emergency room?
Right. Mhm.
What's going on? So the slipping causes you to become much more cognizant of what is going on in the moment. You're not thinking about last week. You're not thinking about what you'll be doing for Christmas. You're thinking about right now. So
Mhm.
this is beautiful the way Allah has tailored this language. This is a meal
Yes. Yes.
now. So the word that's being used in the Quran for Adam's slip is also related, root word wise, to the word for earthquake,
Mhm.
zilzal,
Mhm.
earthquake. And what is the earthquake, metaphorically speaking? The earth, as I have studied it in many different religions and many different civilizations who use that terminology, including the Native Americans who used to put their ear to the ground. They used to put their ear to the earth and they could actually hear the beat of the earth. Say the earth
Mhm.
has a beat, just like the heart.
Yes.
And when you look at the word earth and you look at the word heart, you'll notice they're basically the same word.
Mhm.
You take the H off the front of heart and put it on the end of heart, and you have the word earth. And they both have similar uh, fitra designs, if you will.
Mhm.
So an earthquake is a quaking in the heart department.
Mhm.
And that's what causes all of the children of Adam to slip,
Mhm.
but not necessarily sleep. Now,
Mhm.
we need to be aware of that as a first principle in
Yes.
understanding cosmic hierarchy, because Adam was created to be cosmic man,
Mhm.
not just ordinary man. He was
Exactly.
created to graduate into the connection, as you mentioned, which is what the word salat actually means.
Mhm.
He was created in order to graduate into that connection, direct connection, not through priesthoods, not through ulama, not through sheikhs and shakers,
Mhm.
not through rabbis and priests.
Mhm.
Allah created the human being to have a direct contact with him. He says, when they ask about me, I am near. He didn't say when they ask about me, tell them. He didn't send that word through a courier. He didn't
Mhm.
send that word through a pigeon. He said that word directly. In other words, Muhammad, when they ask you about me, then Allah turns his attention in that moment to the servant and says, I am near. I answer the prayer, the dua of every da'i, of everyone who chooses to call on me, of everyone who chooses to have a two-way connection with me. You see? That's what the letter D means all over the world. It means a two-way connection. That's why we call it duo. That's why we call picking up the old phone dialing, because you bring it this way and it goes back the other way. That's a two-way action, right? So Allah says that he answers the call of every caller who, when he calls. You can't get on me about not answering the phone, and you never even picked up the phone to try to call me. See? Allah says he answers the call of every call. He didn't say of the Muslims. He didn't say of the super righteous and purified ones, I answer their calls. No, Allah says he answers the call of Adolf Hitler. I'm going to the extreme now.
Yeah.
If Adolf Hitler were to call on him, we're the ones who make Allah this petty ethnic guy. You know, God is Jewish, God is Arab. We don't say it out loud, but we say it in our actions and in our treatment of people outside of our ethnic group.
Yes.
God is with us. How long have they been making African-American people believe that they are Muslims by adoption? And they got that from that other group of religious people called Jews, who made the rest of the world feel as though if they become Jewish, it's only by adoption. If you're not coming through the physical womb of a physical Jewish mother, it's impossible for you to be what we are. They started out as a religion and became a race. What kind of foolishness is that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. All right. So Adam was created as a cosmic being, and because he was first, it means that Allah established a hierarchy through him. Adam is the prototypical alpha male because he's first. Alpha and the Arabic letter Aleph are the same thing. And Aleph begins the alphabet. Nothing can happen until Alpha and Aleph happen. Nothing. All of the other letters have to wait until Aleph becomes established. Now, let's talk about the difference between the social alpha male, who has lost his mind pretty much, thinking that all of his brute force is the reason for being. And we're going to contrast that with the fitra-based Aleph male. We won't say alpha now, that's Greek. We're going to say Aleph male, as Allah gives it to us through the language of the Quran, and I'm going to begin to make some numetics connections now. First of all, whenever you see words that contain HR, such as hierarchy, such as the heir to the throne or whatever, it means first. So heir and hierarchy in and of itself means alpha or Aleph, the first. If I'm the heir to the throne, that means as soon as my daddy dies, it's not my brother that's getting the throne, that's getting the position. It's me. I'm the oldest, I'm the first one, I'm the alpha. I deserve that position. That's hierarchy. And that is, if I hire someone, hey, job opening. Somebody shows up, application is good, background check is good, you got the job. I'm not waiting for someone else to qualify. If you already qualify, you'll be the first one that I hire. See, HR, hire, the first. Muhammad the Prophet is said to have received the first revelation, Iqra, on a mountain called Hira. Another HR represents the beginnings of something. Okay? If I become a hero, another HR word, it means that I was the first one on the scene to save that damsel who was in distress. Yeah, somebody, if I come after somebody has already rescued her, I'm not the hero. The hero is always the first one on the scene. to undo what the bad guy was doing. So I'm setting some parameters for how we see hierarchy, because many people see that as a bad word, but it's not. It's a bad word in the minds of people who develop their own wayward social constructs, but it's not a bad word in the fitrah. Allah, as you said, establishes a hierarchy. And for our purposes, that hierarchy begins with the first man, quote unquote, called Adam. Now, let's look at the letters that form the word Aleph. They are simply the consonants Aleph itself and Fa. Pardon me, Aleph. No, we're not looking for Aleph. Let's look at the word. Oh, I know what I was going to say. They call Adam the father of humanity. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. You love this. They call Adam the father. But what's the word in Arabic for father? Ab or Abu. So now we're talking the letters Aleph and Bait, or what they call Ba, the sound of sheep. They like the sound of the sheep for some reason. Ba, I guess they want to make sure that we all remain sheep, but that originally was Bait, because it's related to the other Semitic languages, such as Hebrew, where the second letter is Beth. And it's related also to the Greek alphabet, where the second letter is Beta. And Beth and Beta mean house. So why would the Arabic letter B mean just the sound of the sheep? I don't get it. All right. They're all sister and brother languages. Now, keeping that in mind, the word for father, Aleph, Bait. What does that mean? Aleph has several meanings that are interconnected. One meaning is the meaning of being strong, strength, the strong one. And the strong one is the one that we choose to be our protector. So Aleph also means the protector. Process note. Bait means house, but not just like the physical house that you live in. It can also be the planet itself that we call our home. We say Earth is our home. So the Earth itself is also a form of bait, because bait represents anything that fills up, empties out, refills, and does that ad infinitum. So bait can be your belly. See? And that's why the letter bait begins the Arabic word for belly, butun, as well as the English word for belly, which is belly. It starts with a B. Right? What is called colloquially the man's balls. They fill up with spermatozoa, they empty out, and they refill. And it's infinitum, right? So bait is not just the physical house that you have built or established and moved into with your family. No, you're going to move in there with your family, and then eventually your children are going to grow up. They're going to move out. They're going to marry. Some of the people in the house will die. Maybe you sell the house and a whole new family replenishes the house. So it's any entity that fills up, empties out, and then refills infinitum until the house is torn down, right? So that's the planet Earth itself. Look at how many generations have come and gone that the Quran speaks about. And look at how many new generations have appeared, bi-idhnillah, by the will of Allah, right? So Earth is bait. See, a lot of times when the Quran is talking about Baitul Latif and Baitul Atiq, pardon me, but the ancient house, he's not talking about the box in Mecca. He's not talking about that square box in Mecca. They have all of us believing that it's talking about that physical house sitting in the middle of the desert in Mecca. And they say that's Baitul Atiq, the ancient house. How is that the ancient house when it was built relatively recently in history? The Kaaba has been built and torn down 4 different times and in 2 different places on the Arabian Peninsula. We won't go into that. Yeah, the original one was up in Petra, up in northern.
Yes.
So how can that be the ancient house? That's not the ancient house. The ancient house is the one that you plant your seeds in right now when you go into your front yard or into your farm, your backyard. Yeah, that's the ancient house. And as far as human life is concerned, the ancient house is your mama's belly. Yeah. And what does Allah say? He says, and reverence the wombs that bore you.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now, all of these things are houses. The woman's belly, she gets pregnant, it fills up, it empties out through delivery, and then she can then become re-impregnated, if that's a word. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the main idea behind alpha is contained within the true fitra-based meaning of Aleph. And Aleph means to be strong as a protector. So look at the metaphysical meaning that grows out of that.
Mm.
If the physical father is called the Abu, Aleph Bait, he is the strong one in the house. He is the Aleph protecting the bait. His household members, his wife, his children, he's the protector. If somebody comes to the door and you're not expecting any company and they ring the bell, you don't send a woman to go answer the door.
Mm-hmm.
Your fitra says, oh, well, I better find out who that is. I wasn't expecting any company.
Mm-hmm.
So the man, because he's the protector, he might have to fight. See? Now, if you look at bait as the planet, all right, then Aleph Bait then comes to mean protector of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's who you are, Mr. Alpha. And it's not just a male role. It then becomes the role of both males and females
Of course.
to see themselves as protectors of the planet.
Of course.
People might say, well, yeah, that's a stretch, instructor, because women are not Aleph, they're not Alpha. Oh, yes, they certainly are. Many of them are. I have an Alpha wife. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me I don't. And if I don't exercise my Alpha nature, I might as well just be one of the children around her because she's a boss.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So no, indeed. The protector over the planet is any human being who is cognizant of that particular responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when we talk about father in relation to Adam and also in relation to Ibrahim, Father Abraham, we're not just talking about some individual who lived 5,000 years ago. We're talking about the responsibility that Allah has conferred upon every ancient human. And what does that entail? That entails when you go out in the street and you walk out of your doors and you see garbage strewn in the street, maybe on the curb. It means you go back into your house with a broom and dustpan and you'll go handle that.
Yes.
You're not worried about whether your neighbor sees you doing it. You're not looking for brownie points from the community. Your moral self says this is the right thing to do. That's being a protector over the planet.
Yes.
When you speak out against unnecessary chemtrailing of our skies, the intentional polluting of our air, when you speak out against the COVID jab, you're speaking as a protector over planet Earth and its life forms.
Yes.
When you speak against big industry, and you speak against all of these things that operate against the life that the planet is occupied by. When you speak against those things, you're speaking out as father. And again, that has very little to do with you being a physical male.
Yes, of
It
course.
has to do with your native fitra-based not biology, your native fitra-based nature.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Now, we're talking about cosmic order.
Yes.
And I had mentioned in one of the classes a couple of weeks ago that order, that word comes from the Arabic word ard, which means earth. So the cosmic order is referring to the earth as a cosmic entity. And again, the purpose of Adam's creation is to graduate until Adam returns to the cosmos itself. We say he's returning to the earth. So he's returning to a particular order that Allah has created, because Allah created a hierarchy, but all of what is in the hierarchy eventually returns to its source creator. We say from Allah, or to Allah we belong, and to Allah, we are all gradually returning. So what are we returning to? The original order. And the original order produced peace, civility out of chaos.
Mhm.
Everyone experiences those few moments of chaos as soon as they hit this planet after being delivered from their mother's womb. You know better than I do. I've never seen a baby. I've had 8 of them. I haven't had one, but I've never seen a baby come here just completely peaceful, no worries, no crying, no surprises. No, the baby is born into chaos. People are frantic. Oh, the cord is around his neck. People are frantic when babies are born. So the babies are born, and they are actually displaying the exact fitra actions that occurred, I believe, in the beginning of creation. Allah says that He is the one who creates and repeats that creation. So we don't necessarily have to go into the history books to know how things began. All you have to do is look at the beginning of each life that continues to come here. All right. So lastly, so we are all children of Adam. Banu Adam, the Quran says, Banu Adam. And this word Banu, which also gives us the popular word Ibn, which everyone knows means son. But if I said bint, which carries the B and the N also, just like Ibn and just like bin, then I'm saying daughter. So both sons and daughters are from the same consonantal letters,
Yes.
B and N. You already know means house, that which fills out, empties, and refills. And the letter Nun, which, as you know, through the study of Nunnetics, means seed. So bin and bent mean the house that contains the seeds. What is the house that contains the seeds? We're back to the earth again, aren't we? We're back to the mother's belly that contains the seeds of spermatozoa, intended to fertilize, to fill, empty, and refill that belly of the mother, right? So these are words that take on expansion. Allah says that He is constantly expanding His creation, His universe. But it's not just talking about what the person can see through the telescope. It's talking about what you can see in your life. Is your life being expanded? Your consciousness experiencing that expansion? And if it's not, guess what? You're not in step with Allah's fitrah. And guess what happens to everything that chooses to not be a part of Allah's fitrah? Start again. It's like the experiment in the laboratory. You didn't get it right, and there's nothing worth salvaging, then you scrap it. Allah has no problem with telling nature to scrap that and start over again. Because nature is neutral. Nurture is moral. And that's something that the human being introduces into the equation. But nature itself could care less. If you jump off of a 100-story building and go splat, nature is not going to save your ass. Excuse the expression. Nature's not going to say he gave charity yesterday. Let's have a break. Let's give him a break. No, nature's going to say flat, splat, and stuck like that. If you jump off 100 story, because nature is neutral.
That's correct.
Right. So we have to lean more in the direction of nurture. And this is a part of the alpha aleph process. That aleph is not speaking to someone just being strong in the house and being an alpha male or an alpha female and shouting orders, shouting orders to people. That's not what being a true alpha is. That's what being an alpha is in the social construct that humans have invented. But being an alpha in the world of Allah's fitrah is being a protector over the planet itself.
Yes.
Beginning with you. And then allowing that to extend outward to all things within your responsibility that Allah has ordered you to take control over. See? So that's the true alpha male. Male just means thinker. It means nothing different. In fact, female means more than male does when it comes to the thinking department. She's a female. You know, Fe, that's iron, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So her mind is attracted to things. Why is she the one wearing the diamond ring and you're not? Because she's attracted to diamonds. She likes shiny things. Some like fur coats. Some of them like nice restaurants and being wined and dined, as they say. She's attracted to those things because her nature is magnetic. So Fe is also the code in chemistry for magnetism and those things, because she attracts. The male goes out. She takes things in. She is magnetic. She's magnetizing things. She magnetized you.
Yes, yes.
Your wife, she magnetized you. The ovum, I believe, magnetizes the exact sperm out of all of those millions of sperm. I believe the ovum actually has a chemistry composition that magnetizes the exact one that is perfectly compatible with her. I believe that. I can't prove it,
Yes.
but I believe it.
Yeah, under ideal conditions, yes.
Yeah, under ideal conditions. That's right. If nothing in the nature department interferes with that.
That's
because
correct.
nature is neutral. So if you begin immediately employing the nurture feature, the nurture feature fits wrong, right? When you begin immediately employing that feature, then you stand a better chance. If you know that you're pregnant and you begin taking care of yourself immediately upon receiving that knowledge, then you have a better chance than those who just go la-di-da and let whatever happens happen. I'm going to continue to drink. I'm going to continue to smoke. I'm going to continue to listen to anything and everything that somebody wants to put into my ear. Then your lack of nurturing is what's going to cause nature to say, here's another one for the scrap pile.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So I think that's enough for now. And I think that's enough for you to chew on. And I know that your brain is busy processing that. I'm still busy processing your opening notes, but this is a wonderful thing. Hey, people say, well, you have to wait for Ramadan to have what's called the night of power. Oh no, there's no such idea in the Quran. The part of the Quran that speaks about Laylatul Qadr is nowhere near the part of the Quran that speaks about Ramadan, because it has nothing to do with a month in the year called Ramadan. The night of power is anytime the circumstances present themselves for the activation of that power.
Yes, of course it is.
So this is Laylatul Qadr. I can feel it. I feel the power in what we're exchanging as information, because it's cosmically connected. You go.
Yes. Well, my concern with bringing this whole topic up is the connection aspect. You see, when this is something that people seem to have trouble with. I never had trouble with it. I was just unaware of it for many, many years. But once you make this contact with God, and I'm even hesitant to use that term anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there are various opinions about the term God, but once you make contact with the source of our better judgment, put it that way,
Nice.
then you don't want to stop that contact. And there's references in the New Testament to something that says praise ceaselessly. Well, I thought about that for many years, and I said, well, and I met some people that walk around carrying their beads and constantly praying like that. But I don't think that's what it means. I think what it means is I'm going to take this concept as you introduce here, is that the male responsibility for protection, and we expanded that very generously to, and very naturally to the female. So we both take part of that because the two become one flesh. I mean, we're just a unity, you see. You can say, okay, well, one soul's not going to answer for another soul. Well, we understand that, but our purpose in a conjoint venture is a unity. You see, this is a Unitarian thing. So That's why I've told many people that, okay, well, the first thing I really want to know about a man is whether or not his wife has a smile on her face. You see, I want to know this, and I want to know it as soon as I possibly can. Because then that it means I can extend a degree of respect towards this individual that he has already shown that he deserves. You see, because the first responsibility that a manly man has, is to put that smile on his wife's face and keep it there. You see, so if he can do that, then you can pretty well trust that he's going to be able to do anything you hand him that is within his ability to do it. He'll get it done. You can trust him. And this is amana. This is what the relationship of the prophet was to Allah and to Islam and to the people. Everyone called him trustworthy.
Indeed.
They knew that he could trust him.
Right.
So we're expanding this idea of hierarchy to include now different concepts. All right. So we have the male, we have the female, and they're being malely responsible, okay, for the protection of the art, of the house, the buy it, if you will.
Beautiful.
Okay. Well, so that's what we're doing. Okay. So if you're going to do this, and you're going to be responsible, you have to maintain contact. Okay, because, well, you don't know how to do it now, do you? You see. And if you don't maintain contact with the guy who designed the whole system, how are you going to take care of the system, you see? So you've got to maintain contact, and you've got to maintain contact with not just with the creator, but with the system.
Yes.
Hey, that means, well, is the Quran telling me about the system? No. Well, how do I learn about the system? There's a word called science, study, read, examine, okay, make determinations, use the mathematics, use the numbers, use your brain-o up here for something more than walking around touching beads and pretending that you have contact.
Right.
Okay.
Oh man.
Now, I'm trying to work this thing through according to what you've said to me. Now, why do we need this hierarchy? Well, because if we don't maintain connection with the system and with the system's creator, we can't understand it, we can't protect it, which means we can't serve him. All right. And that is the essence of the knowledge crisis. And I think that I'm probably going to redo that lecture. I've been having more requests to do that as one of the campfire talks. We really didn't do that whole thing. We got a little bit confused there. In any case, so we've got this knowledge crisis if we don't maintain contact. So ritual prayer is not going to do it.
No,
that doesn't do it.
No.
So you got to maintain contact in order to get it's kind of, all right, you're out there in the space station, you're calling Houston, and they got the controls, and you've got some controls, but between both of you, you got the whole control. Okay, so that's kind of like the male and the female working together, get everything done together. So you got to maintain this contact, you got to maintain communication, and you got to maintain communications with what? Well, with those who designed the systems and with the system itself, which is telling you what's right and what's wrong. Because there's all kinds of gadgets and gizmos in there, and you're reading those graphs and whatever is showing up on a computer about your life support systems, about the radiation systems, all these sort of things, but flight system, navigation systems, my God. Not to mention what missiles you got to fire from that place when they push that red button down there. So this requires connection. And it requires hierarchy. Somebody's responsible every step above the way.
Yes.
Okay, there's a responsible person who's supposed to be there. Yeah. So if we're not maintaining contact, okay, and all we're doing is walking around touching prayer beads and kissing the carpet.
Kissing the rug, yeah.
Kissing the rug.
Right.
And we're not reading the system. We don't understand the system. We can't repair the system. We can't even repair a motorbike. We can't even fix a flat tire.
Wow.
What have we come to? We've come to a bunch of shisha pipe smokers
Yeah.
who are staying up all night during Ramadan thinking that they're doing God a favor.
Yes. Yeah.
You see, no, this is not Islam, okay? And
Not at
this is not submission to divine order
No way.
because it's completely and totally irresponsible.
It's chaos.
All right, this is chaos. Now, chaos is an interesting word if you look back at the Greek origin. People kind of think, oh, it just means everything going every which way. No, 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 no. Chaos means full of possibility. It means everlasting potential.
Yeah.
It's all there.
That
All
needs
you got to
be
do
ordered.
is put it in order.
Yes.
Okay,
Order
well,
priorities. That's right.
all right, so Allah's put this whole thing in order. And if we're here to take the next step as the protector of the system, we have to put things in order, which is going to mirror what heaven's already done. You see, because we can't, no, we're not going to say, hey, you don't look at a beautiful sunrise and say, hey, thank hell for that.
Right.
No, no, you say, thank God for the beauty, right? Nobody thanks Satan for a rainbow. Nobody does that. Not that I know of. It's
Except for some wily people in history who said
well,
who called it helio.
yeah, well, you know, they get a little bit confused. But you understand what I'm saying.
Sure.
If we want to keep the system in order, if you want your life to be in order, you've got to make sure that you're in the divine order.
Absolutely.
And so I've met and I've been there. I mean, I've been a fellow who's in my past, I was out of order, completely out of order. And everything that you do when you're out of order, it comes back to bite you. My God, no matter how good you might think the thing may be, it's going to come back and bite you if you're out of order. What I mean by being out of order is being out of this hierarchical system that's been established by heaven, by our source creator. Okay, if you're out of that order, then nothing's going to go right for you. Okay, it's not going. You're going to have you're 2 steps forward, maybe 5 backwards, and you're going to be thinking the exact opposite's taking place when in fact it's not, because one day the whole system's going to be come crashing down. Start again.
Yeah.
Just like you said.
Yeah.
Just like you said.
Oh, yeah.
And if Allah is really interested in you, he'll keep on crashing you until you get it right.
Mm-hmm.
You see,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you know, you just let your son, you know, crash that thing until he gets it right. You know, if he's determined, you know, if he's look, I got a boy right now who thinks he's going to be, you know, one of these fighters in the ring, you know. And this MMR, whatever they call it, and I'm not sure he can take a punch. He hasn't really taken one yet. But hey, I'm encouraging him.
You never know.
Understand?
Sure.
Go in there, get in the ring, do it, give it all you got. I want to know who's in your corner. I want to know everything about what's going on. He's in Kuching in Malaysia right now, getting ready for his first bout, and I'm all behind it. But I fully expect he's going to be knocked on his bottom, you know. And I'm waiting for him to get back up and go back at it again. See. So now, when you're preparing for a fight, when you're preparing to meet your destiny, you're going to have this you know, challenges. You're going to slip and fall and all this sort of thing. But if you're out of order, you're not going to make any real headway at all. And if you're out of order, everything that you do will come crashing down to some particular point if God loves you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now there's an if there. There's a condition. I don't
Yeah.
like to talk to people who got this unconditional love bug bite. You know, that doesn't sit right with me, because my reading the scriptures is all very conditional. There's no such thing as unconditional love except for this this thing they've done with Jesus, and that's just like that's deicide as far as I'm concerned. That ain't love. So anyway, if you are out of order, everything you do will come crashing down until you get right.
Yeah.
You see, if you have some sort of I haven't figured it out yet, brother. I'm working on it. Okay, I'm working on it. I'm 73. I'm still working on it.
Mhm.
Saying, well, why does God forget some people and remember others? Okay, because He hasn't forgotten me, and I've been pretty terrible in years past. So I'm just wondering. I know other guys that He's just completely forgotten. Now I got some ideas, why He just lets them go their own ways, but there's something to do with your intention. You see, it has something to do with intention. And if somewhere along the way, I remember making a prayer when I was very young, and I was very sincere, and I didn't have any idea of what theology really was and all this sort of thing. I just always believed that God was there somehow. And I said, look, just knock me on my butt, however long it takes, and however many times it takes for me to get it right, because I knew I was going to get a whole bunch of things wrong. Now that one little prayer might have saved my butt. I don't know, okay, because I've been on the wrong side more time than I've been on the right side, and now that I'm trying to do things right, I'm just absolutely amazed at what's happening for me and in me. And in some of the things with some of the things I'm able to perceive now. But divine order and intention has everything to do with success and failure in terms that we can call al-Islamic, okay? Because we want success here and we want success hereafter. We don't want failure here and failure hereafter, okay? So what we want to do is we want to produce the fruit. And what I'm stating here, my hypothesis is, if you're out of order, you can't produce that fruit. And if you are producing fruit, it's going to be bittersweet, which means it's going to be good and bad.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in order and you're doing the best that you possibly can, then according to the hierarchy, and you recognize this hierarchy in every relationship that you establish with other people. It's not difficult to do, and you don't always have to spell it out. Sometimes you just step into the room and P33 takes its way, it makes a way, and the grace follows, and the leadership is established and everyone recognizes it, and you barely have to say a word. It's just sort of an acknowledgement by everybody that, this is our leader. Everyone acknowledges that. We don't need an election. We don't need a vote. It's just people just give way. You see, when the person, whether it's a male or female, who is bringing the message, bringing the inspiration, they just give way to it. And they submit to that moment of truth, no matter who the person is. So that's an element of divine order. We talked about this a little bit yesterday with my ear. Some of the colors that we use in one dream is this wonderful yellow amber color, and the color purple, a little bit of lavender there on the edge of the aura, this sort of thing. We can see these things around with some people. We can see it with children. It's a recognition of these things rather than the sensationalism that's involved in trying to identify these things. Okay, well, look, there's so much knowledge there that should just be used on a regular basis according to this order that we've just discarded, ignored, thrown away, removed from our educational system, removed from our madrasas, just gone. It's not there. And it's things, dear brother, that are normal. But people have this supernatural, superstitious preoccupation with what might be considered supernatural, and that gets in the way. It gets in the way. When I talk about being guided and being in touch with God, it's just normal for me. This is not a big deal. And I get letters all the time and people saying, well, what are you talking about? How do you do that? Look, intention is pure and do your best. That's all you got to do. And talk to God. You started this thing out saying, when my servant calls me, I am there. I
Yeah.
am there.
Yes.
What I'm telling people is here, brother, believe it. He's there. Yes,
I have an answer for your question. In fact, you've answered your own question.
I probably did.
Why does Allah do this? And why
Mhm.
does Allah not do that?
Yes, right.
But in the middle of your discourse, you answered your own question. This is a beautiful thing. Listen to what you
Yes,
said.
yes.
You mentioned niyyah or intention. All right. I also mentioned both nature and nurture.
Yes.
Here is the reason for people's progress and or lack of progress. Some people who refuse to take conscious control and responsibility over their lives, because the human being is designed to be a conscious thinker with the intellect operating. But when they refuse to use the akal, then they have, unbeknownst even to themselves, they have consigned themselves not to the nurturing process that Allah wants us to come into. They remain in the nature process. When you remain in the nature process, things happen to you that happen in nature. Like I said, when things are no longer useful in nature, nature sweeps them away.
Yes. Right.
And that's what happens to a lot of people. They have that whole question, why do bad things happen to good people? They've written books on this stuff.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
even good people, if they're not conscious thinkers, if they're not people of dhikr, remembrance, evaluation, contemplation, studious attention to things that Allah put in their environment, if they're not that kind of people, then they're not going to get any of the ar-Rahim that you love to mention.
Yes,
The merciful redemption. They're never going to
Yeah.
experience that. They'll experience
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, they'll get the Rahman, the general mercy that's given to everybody. Let's see what you do with this, son. I'm going to give you $5 for the first time. Let's see what you do with it. They're going to get that. But they're not going to get any of the mercy that comes from Allah's being a redeeming quality in their life, because it takes nurture to forgive somebody. You do that with your children because you're attempting to continue nurturing your children.
Yes, right.
So if you have a child and you just leave them to the winds of circumstances and you don't give them any education, you don't give them any guidance, you don't give them any moral or ethical principles to operate, and you just let them grow up, and nature's going to take control, and you're going to have a really hard time with that child. If they don't kill you first, you might end up killing them.
Yes, yes.
Because you've given them over to the forces of nature, and nature is neutral. But if you give them over to the influences of nurture, now you have another situation. So I'm going to finish what I'm saying. This word, niyyah. Look at niyyah. Niyyah is a combination of two consonants, essentially. The letter nun, N, and the letter ya. Nun, as you know, means seed. Imagine a seed. You're a farmer. Imagine what you do with seeds. Seeds are meant, on the most part, to be planted into the ground, either by you or by nature. Nature, take it in the winds and deposit it where someone. We didn't grow all these forests. Sometimes we think we do these things. Oh, why there's vegetation on earth. No, you're not. The source creator did that. But he showed you the blueprint for how to do it yourself in your own yard. Now, the seed has ideation. It already has a ready-made idea of what it's supposed to be that's packed into the interior of the seed, right?
Yes.
And then yeah means to spread a thing. See, when we say yeah Allah, we're asking for the expansion that Allah brings into our lives. We're pleading with Allah, yeah Allah, right? And the very fact that that letter comes as the last letter in the Arabic alphabet tells you that if you've achieved that position, you've concluded your mission. Just like when the plant begins to stem and sprout and give back fruits, it's completed its particular mission. So that's what we're looking for, not just the seed, because we can take that seed and just throw it on the concrete. It doesn't make the seed any less valuable. It only means that the seed cannot complete its term in its proper environment because you didn't place it where it was supposed to be. Our children are the same way. If you don't plant that seed where it's supposed to be, it's not going to do what Allah intended for it to do. So that's nature. Giving the seed to nature, just throw it in the air, throw it in the projects, leave it, on the street for the garbage trucks to run over. Well, you're not going to get what the ideation was designed to give you. But if you take it and put it in its proper environment, now you've moved that seed from being under the forces of nature, being under the influences of nurture.
Yes.
And that's why some people are not successful, because they're given to nature and neutrality. They're neutral in everything. They don't have any moral position in anything. They don't have any idea of why or why not they should do these things or not do these things. Whatever the government says is what they do. Take this jab. Okay, those are people who are still under the principle of nature. So they suffer what nature, all of these deaths now due to these COVID jabs.
Yes.
That's because they consign themselves to natural processes, and nature abhors a void. If the intellect ends up missing, nature will replace it with new intellects. No matter how good a grandmother you've been, you still are going to be subject to that ignorance. You know what I'm saying? But if you give it to nurture, I'm going to read up on this before I put it in my veins. I'm going to ask for the records on this from the whatever agencies control the information coming in concerning this particular product or this particular combination of chemicals in my system. I want to know what it's going to do. You can't leave me by telling me it's an experiment, but I have to do it. No, I'm not going to. That's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
See? So now you are on the side of nurture. And then nurture is going to be your friend, because nurturing is redemptive. Nurturing sees the obstacles, it sees the mistakes, the missteps that you're making, just like Adam slipped, but he didn't sleep. So you have a second and a third and a fourth, and any amount of chances that Allah will give you as Ar-Rahim.
Yes.
And Ar-Rahman, you'll have to deal with again in the judgment. And the Ar-Rahman that Allah speaks about, who shows up in the judgment, he ain't the merciful guy that you think he is.
Yeah, right.
All right, I'm through.
Yeah, so it's there's this whole exchange that is the result of the connection, the salat that we need to maintain is conditional. That's the major point here.
Yes.
It's conditional. So if you're not getting this Rahim grace, you ain't meeting the conditions.
Right.
Well, with that being said, dear brother, thank you once again. Thank you once again.
Thank Allah. Yes, Alhamdulillah. Rabbil Alameen.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Until next time, bi-idhnillah, with the permission of Allah.
Inshallah.
All right.